Welcome to the Learn to Sew Academy channel. Please remember to subscribe. Thank you.
Welcome to a new tutorial. In this video, we're going to be making a 6-piece blouse. We're going to have a zip in the front. That's what's going to be different in our 6-piece. We're not going to put the zipper at the back. So we're going to be having a zipper right here in the front. Just like I explained when we did the 6-piece skirt, and you can check that. I'm going to leave a link on this video and in the description if you want to see how we did the 6-piece skirt. So what we're basically doing here is we're just going to be cutting 6 different panels technically and joining them together to form one whole piece. In this case, we're going to be putting into consideration the bust, the under bust and the waist. So we're going to be putting all these variation into consideration as we cut this top, because we're going to have a zipper here in the middle. The one in the front is actually going to be like a 4-piece, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. And then when we start to cut, as you will see in the video, we need to always put into consideration our seam allowances. You don't want to cut the exact measurement, because if you do so and you sew it, it's gonna be too tight. When you think about it, we're cutting these into different pieces, so we need to rejoin them. We're gonna rejoin this right side to the middle, the left side to the middle. So that's why you need your additional seam allowance, which I will explain as we go along. And right here are all the measurements we'll be using. So you're gonna need a shoulder measurement, and then you're gonna need your bust measurement. You're gonna need your bust point, which is gonna be from your shoulder up to the nipple area. You're gonna need the under bust. You're gonna need to know your half length, that's from your shoulder to your waistline. You're also going to need your bust span, and some people call it the nipple to nipple, or some call it the apex. So we're gonna need that measurement too as we go along, because we're gonna make this lower part to flare out just like we have in our 6-piece skirt. So when we start to fold our fabric, we must put into consideration how much flare we're hoping to get at the bottom of our top. So what we're gonna do in this case is we're going to first, like usually when you're doing the top, you want to consider the biggest part of the body, which is the bust area. But in this case, you want to consider how much bigger than your bust area do you want this lower part to be, the flat part. So in this case, I'm going to use the bust. You can add any allowance you want, as much as you want. You can do 8 inches more, you can do 10 more, or even more than that, depending on how full you want this part to be. So I'm just gonna stick with 10 inches, and then I'm gonna also have to add allowance, because remember again, we're cutting these into different pieces and we're gonna need to rejoin it together. The first thing to do is you want to fold your fabric into 2, like I've done right here. And when you fold, just like I explained in my 6-piece skirt, you want to consider your flare, how much you want as you fold this. You need to add whatever you desire to have as your additional flare at the bottom. So in this case now, I'm working with a bust of 42, and I'm going to add additional. You can do 8 inches, you can do 10 inches, you can do 12. It depends on how full you want it, but I'm just going to do 10 inches more. So altogether I have 52 inches. And when I divide that by 4, and why we divide by 4, like I've explained before, is because when we are starting to cut, we cut on the fold. So we're going to have 2 parts of the front and 2 parts of the back. So it's also because we took a circumference. We went around the body when we were taking our bust measurement. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that my total, which is now 52. That's the bust plus my additional for the flare. So I have 52. I'll divide that by 4. And I would now add extra allowances. Like I've explained, because we're going to be joining the different pieces together, we need those additional allowance. But then my front is going to have a zipper. So I have to put that too into consideration. And for my zipper, I'm going to have an additional 1.5 inches. So what I have here is quite enough for me. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to measure for that 1.5, and I'm just going to draw a line just to guide me from that zip allowance point. And I'm just going to draw a line over there, joining those points where I'm going to start my measurement. But when I start my measurement, I'm going to start from the from after my zip allowance line, because this is where my zipper goes. So I'm going to start to measure from this line that I've just drawn here. Now the blouse length I need is 25 inches. So I'm going to need 1/2 inch to join it at the shoulder area. That's 25 and a half. And then at the bottom, I'm going to need 1.5 at the bottom. So that altogether is like additional 2 inches. So that will be 25 plus 2 is going to give me 27. So I'm just going to measure my 27 real quick, and I'm going to cut that out and then start to show you how to measure for this 6-piece top that we're making. So for my pattern, I'm going to make this the lower part of my top. So now we're going to start to measure. So in this case, one thing we really want to consider over here is the bust span. That's the apex, nipple to nipple, whatever you want to call it. So that's the line that's what I want to measure from this line first. And what I have is 8.5. So because again, this is folded into two, this is like 2 parts of the front. So I'm going to divide the 8.5 by 2, and that's going to give me 4.25. So from this line, because again, this is where my zipper goes, I'm going to measure that 4.25, and then I'm going to add my seam allowance. Remember that we left 1/2 inch for the sewing allowance. So I'm going to add that. That's going to give me 4.75, which is what I'm marking now. So this right here is my 4.75. I'm just going to draw a line so you can easily see it. So now what I want to do is I want to measure what my bust point is. That's from the shoulder to the fullest part of the bust, and I have 11. So this is my 11 inches right here. I need to add that my 1/2 inch that I left for the shoulder. So I'm actually going to do 11.5 here, because I want to put into consideration my seam allowance at the top. On the bust is 15 that I'm using in this project, plus that 0.5. So I'm going to do 15.5. And then I have my 1/2 length, and I'm working with a 1/2 length of 16.5, plus the 1/2 for the seam allowance at the shoulder area. That's going to be 17. So now these are the 3 major things I'm going to be working with right here. So what I'm going to begin to do is to measure based on all those 3 major points that I've mentioned here: bust point, the under bust, and the 1/2 length. So this is where we're actually going to focus on. So I want to measure, that's a 4.5, which is a 4.75, which is our bust span. So that's what we want to measure all the way to where we have our 1/2 length. Our flare is going to start at the waist. So we're going to stop here for now at the waistline. But what you want to do, what we are trying to do is that we're trying to shape, because this top we're making is going to shape in at the waist and give you a kind of snugness at that waistline. So that is what we're doing right here. So because that's what we're doing, what we're going to do now is we're going to I'm just quickly going to draw my line all the way here because these two have to correspond to what I have here. So my 11.5, I want it to be here. And then this my 15.5 right here as well. And then my 17 is all the way here. Okay, so I just joined that line to give you a better picture of what I'm trying to do. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the you want to go to that where you have the underbust, and then you want to shape it in a little. So what you do then is you go in maybe 1 inch or 1.5 inch depending on what you're hoping to achieve. I'll just do 1 inch right there, right? And then that my 1 inch, I want it also to be all the way to where I have the half length. So I'm just going to join that point. And when I do that now, I want to now extend this and join it here to where we have our bust span right here, where we have our bust point. Sorry, that's the shoulder all the way to where we have the bust point. So I want to connect this to here. That's what we're doing. So in that case, we have kind of shaped here. In some people this may be wider, but I always go by whatever the measurements I took. You don't force things and make it wider if it's not supposed to be. So this is how much I have between the underbust and the half length. So I'm just going to work with that, but you want to connect from here now to here. Then you want to come up here around where you have the shoulder, and you want to connect from this bust point measurement all the way up there. When you do that, you want to have just like a little slant here about 1 inch, or you can even measure that if you want. You can do about 1 inch right here at the top, and then you want to connect those points together. You want to connect it down here as well, and this just helps us to shape it. You can just make sure you put a little bit of curve in there just to make it a little curvy around that area. And then from here now we can just extend to, again, whatever you want each panel to be in your top, you know, however long you want it. It depends on you. If you decide that you just want about 8, you don't want it too big, you can go from here. You can still adjust it as you go along. Whatever you want to do, you can now do that around here depending on how wide you want it. So what you want to do now is you want to extend from here to whatever length you want your flare to be. You don't want it to look too bogus at the same time. So I'm going to do between 7.5 to 8 for my slant. So now we can now cut following the markings that we made here. At this point, I'm going to do my neckline later after I rejoin the pieces together. So the next thing I want to do now is to cut for the sides of the top. I just want to fold it. And as I fold again, remember I always put the flare into consideration. Now this time for the sides, we're gonna have flare on both part of the sides. Unlike this center we just have the flare on one side like this, which is actually both sides because this is the center. So this is going to be joining to one side, this is going to be joined to another side. So but in this other case, I'm going to have the flare on the two sides. So as I fold this, we want to put that into consideration. And what we're going to do here is pretty simple. What we want to do is we're going to use this one for the center front. We're going to use it as a template, but as we begin to measure, we want to remember not to include the 1.5 inches that we use for zip allowance. I've cut this center front into two. So what I'm just gonna do now is I'm just gonna take one of it and use it as a template for this. So what we're trying to do now is we want to cut the sides of the top. That's the right side and the left side of the blouse that we're making. So this right here, as we know, is the center. So this is one of the center pieces, because we have again the zipper here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use this as a template and I'm gonna cut this. But before you cut this part out, you want to make sure that the fold you have here, that whatever you have left here is enough for your bust, which is the biggest part of your body now, and then also the slant you need for the flay, because on the sides, which is this is what this is going to be. This is going to be the right side and the left side of the front of this blouse. So you want to make sure that the flay you want on the side, you want to make sure that this, what you are going to have left here, is enough. And you're also going to consider the allowance that you want to put as you're making your blouse, as you're cutting this fabric. You want to put into the consideration the allowance that you're going to be needing. So I've checked this out. My bust that I'm using for this project is 42. We divide that by 4, we have 10.5. So what I want to do is to go to this bust point where we still have the line here. I want to see what we already have here. Already we have 4.5 here. And remember, out of this 4.5, we have half an inch for the sewing allowance. So technically we have 4 inches here if we take out the seam allowance. So out of 10.5, less this 4 inch that we already cut out, we're going to need to cut 6.5 more. That's 10.5 minus 4. So 6.5 more. So from this point, we want to measure the 6.5 like that. And then want to add our allowance that we're going to use to join this part again, this center part where we cut it right here, where we're going to be joining the center front to either the center right or the center left. So we need additional half an inch there. So that's going to be 6.5 plus that half an inch. That'll give you 7. Then on this side, depending on what allowance you want, if you want 1 inch allowance, you add an additional 1 inch allowance. So altogether, you can add 1.5 allowance, depending on how much allowances that you're putting at the points you're joining it, both at the center and at the side. So that's what this is. So again, we need 10.5 less 4. So that gives us 6.5. So I'm just going to do 2 inches more right there. So that gives me 8.5 at the bust point. So that's what I have here. Then for the on the bust, so let me just quickly mention that at this point, what we are actually working with is the bust, the under bust measurement, and your waist measurement. For the shoulder, we're going to come back to this after we join these pieces together, just to simplify the process. So after we've joined the pieces together, we'll come back and shape for the shoulder, the armhole, and the neckline. So 2 options. You can either start to measure direct here before you cut out this side. This side is going to be the same. So, or you can first cut out this side and then you start to measure. So I'm going to quickly cut out this side just so you can see what I'm doing better. So I'm going to start from the bust point. And again, I need the 8.5, which is what I've marked here. Then I'll come to my under bust The underbust circumference is 36. You divide that by 4, it's going to give us 9 inches. So what we have here already is 3.5. We already have that ½ inch for the seam allowance. So now we have 9. 9 minus the 3 is going to be 6. So we're just going to do 6 inches here all across, and then I'm just going to add 2 more inches. So I'm looking at 8 inches. So that's like adding, actually that's like adding ½ an inch here, 1.5 inches there. You can also measure it. You can decide that, okay, from here to here, this is what you have. This is about 3 inches. You can come here and say, okay, this is my 3 inches. And then you can decide, oh, I want 4 additional inches at the bottom here, or I want 3 additional inches, depending on how much you want the slant to be on the sides. The waist we're using for this project is 40 inches. And when we divide the 40 by 4, we're going to have 10 inches. So you want to check what you have here already. Over here we have 3.5 here, and we need 10 inches for the waist. So again, when we remove the allowance, technically we have 3 inches here, and we need 10 inches. So 10 less the 3 inches we already have. So we need an extra 7 inch. So plus the sewing allowance. So I'm just going to connect those like that. And then for the top here, remember again that we're going to shape the armhole later. You can also shape it now, but to simplify it, I prefer we shape it later. So we can just draw a straight line there for now. So from here now, what we need to do is we're going to, from our half length, we're just going to do a slant all the way to the end. And so now we can cut that out. So this right here is going to be our center. This is where we're going to have a zipper right here. So we're going to have a zipper in there. We're going to fold it in. Remember we left about 1.5 inches right here for the zipper. So whatever zipper we're going to use, we go in the center right there. And then on the sides, we're going to have, I'm just going to put a quick mark here to help me to quickly identify my center. So we're going to join them all like that. So this is what we're going to be having in the front, just to give you an idea. And depending on the zipper we're using, we're just going to have a zipper here, a separating zipper in the middle. And again, when I finish joining it, I'm going to cut the neckline and I'm going to shape the armhole. I just wanted to give you an idea of what it's looking like. That's what we're having. And now we're going to cut the back. See the link in the description for the next video. Remember to subscribe and click the bell icon for notification. And leave us a thumbs up if you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching.